For most people listening to this podcast, you're probably already familiar with Biltwell, the company that made its name on high-quality, affordable helmets, parts and accessories, and more. In this episode of Do You Even Chopper, we talk to co-founder Bill Bryant about Biltwell's growth and founding, as well as its events, the Diablo Run, Kernville Campout, and now the Northwest Motofest, which makes its debut in Port Angeles, Washington in August. All this and more on Do You Even Chopper? Hey Bill, how's it going?
Going all right, Tim. How are you?
I'm really good. I bet you're probably hungover and a little tired from EDR.
I'm a little tired. I'm not hungover.
Yeah.
We definitely had some beers, but it wasn't the party, at least for us, that it was 20 years ago, you know?
Yeah. How do you think the party changed over time, though? 20 years, so there's 10 of them, essentially, right? Or you did them every year for a couple years, right?
Yeah, I think we figured it out. Don't quote me. I think we have done 12 in 20 years, because when we first started in '06, we did every year. So we did like '06, '07, '08. Then we quit in '09, thought we were burning it to the ground and never going to do it again because we had 300 people and we thought that was too much. Then 2011 came around and we did it again, and that was when we switched to every other year. So I think it was like 11 or 12, whatever. It was too many. 20 years is a long time. We had a blast. It's always kind of a family reunion. You get together with people that you haven't seen in a year or two. Part of the reason we switched it to being an every other year was we had so many friends that came from out of town, like really far, like New Jersey and Canada and stuff.
Yeah.
And to try to ask them to do that every single year just was too much of an ask, Plus, we were pretty tired after doing it. It's like, man, as soon as you get done, you kind of start planning next year. And we're like, man, we got a business to run and kids to raise and all this stuff. So let's make it an every other year thing. And when we first started, a lot of people would build a bike for it every year, like build a different bike or at least rebuild their own bike so that it was kind of different every year. And so by making it a 2-year thing, it was kind of easier to come up with a different bike build. It was easier if you were coming from the East Coast. We realized pretty early on, like, man, these guys are spending 5 days to get to Southern California, then 5 days doing the run, then 5 days to get home. That's all their sick time, all their personal leave, everything from work. That's a big investment to ask anybody to make just to go party with idiots in Mexico.
Yeah, and for you, it was much shorter of a trip from.
It was, yeah, exactly. Like guys coming from San Diego, it was no big deal, But if you're coming from somewhere far, then obviously it was a much bigger commitment for them.
When did you feel like, when you restarted it in 2011, when did you feel like it kind of went from being like a Biltwell event to being kind of its own kind of world and thing of its own kind of mystique?
I'd have to go back to the photo archives to really see. I don't know. It got really popular with the Mexican bike clubs. I want to say maybe it was 2019, like right before COVID. And once they caught on, it got more fun in some ways because those dudes know how to party. I mean, they really, really get it on. But that brought more stock bikes and just more people,
Yeah.
And we tried to address that by like selling merch in pesos because it didn't make sense to try to make these guys find American dollars somehow when that was all we had been set up to do before, because we were really only selling to Americans. There was no locals down there that cared about it. And I think the thing that made it go that way was we finally coordinated with the city because it was getting too big. And so we got an appointment with the mayor and like the director of tourism and all this stuff, because we were like, man, we're going to get probably shut down at some point for this and go to jail or who knows. And so we went and met with them, with our friend Kiki that runs the hotel and campground down there, who's been a fundamental part of this since day one. And we went and met with the mayor, like I said, and the director of tourism and their whole entourage. And they were way more receptive to it than we thought. Previously we had a little bit of trouble with the police, and we kind of wouldn't let anybody know we were coming until we rolled in, and then 2 or 3 days later we roll out, and they were just like, "Wow, what happened? Where did all those
Yeah.
knuckleheads come from?" And we just thought it was kind of smarter to not like more beg forgiveness than ask permission kind of thing. And then when we sat down with those guys, on the way down to that trip, me and Otto and Magoo were talking, and we're like, "Man, our guys bring a lot of value to the town. It's not like Canadian tourists that fill up at Costco and just blow right
Blow
through.
right back. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, motorcycle people show up, they don't have anything. They're half of the people in the early days would buy a hammock and a blanket there and then leave it at the campground or donate it to somebody and split, but every bottle of water, every cold beer, every taco, all that stuff is completely bought in town. So we brought that up when we sat down with the city, and they said, "We're aware and we understand and we want to try to help you and make it good. What can we do?" And we were like, wow, kind of blown away.
Yeah.
So we said, rather than have this in this campground in the area outside, which is just a big dirt field with like rebar and chunks of concrete, and like it's just not a real hospitable spot, but it's totally Baja. We said we want to do a bike show on the Malecon, which is like the main drag next to the water where all the like street vendors and
Yeah.
restaurants and bars and everything are. And they said, okay, we can block that off and make it so there's no cars or very few cars. And we said, can we get away with not wearing helmets in town? Which is funny for a helmet company to ask that, right? little irony there. But
Yeah.
a bunch of our guys, the laws are really unclear in Mexico on helmet usage, and I think it really depends on the mood of the cop. And so, as I understand it, you have to wear a helmet in town, like and I don't know what constitutes town, but out on the open highway, you can go with no helmet if you want. So guys would just roll in and be like, "Oh, somebody's riding around with no helmet. I don't have to wear a helmet," and then they'd end up getting busted or go to jail, or
Yeah.
it cost them $40. And so we asked the city if they could, sort of back off on that, and they said no problem. As far as I know, nobody's got a ticket ever since for riding with no helmet. They've got in trouble for plenty of other things. So I think that was what kind of opened it more to the public, and that made it so that it was we just kind of grew the fishbowl, so there was more room rather than it just being kind of condensed in these two campgrounds and the dirt lot across the street and the beach and whatever. And that just made it more approachable. And then, of course, social media, so Mexico has Facebook just like we do, and Instagram and TikTok and everything else. So I think the word just spread and people were having fun. And yeah, it was great. It's bigger than we can try to control.
Yeah. Yeah. And that as an organizer has to kind of start feeling really awkward because you start thinking about all your liability.
It does. I mean, we did the Circle of Death. The last one we did was, I think, 2023. And a guy got whiskey throttle on a Dyna and rode straight into the crowd. And I'm sitting on the top of our rig. We built this Army LMTV into like an overland chase rig. And I'm sitting up there, and my buddy Oscar's like our EMT on site. And I was like, "Oscar," he's like, "I'm on the way." And he's running out there. I was like, "Here we go. This is it. This is the end," you know? And he got over there, and the dude that the guy in the Dyna hit knocked him out. He's laying on the ground. Oscar flips him over. A pipe and a lighter falls out of his hand. And come to find out, it was the guy that was running around the night before, frying on acid, wearing nothing but a vest, like no pants, trying to fight everybody in the street. And so we were like, "Oh, well, he hit the worst guy here." I guess that's okay. So we just kind of woke him up, and he was fine. And I was like, man, if that was somebody's girlfriend that had her back turned to
Oh,
the
yeah.
race, and now she's paralyzed, like I can't do that.
Yeah.
It was fun when it was more controllable. And there's no way, when it's kind of like a circle track, or sort of like a flat track, but we always ran it opposite way so that if you had an open primary, you wouldn't drag it, so you'd be turning right, which
Yeah.
everybody would complain about. But then that also makes it more challenging because you can't get your rear brake. And so yeah, we had designed it that way, and I just thought, man, there's no way we can do this. It's everywhere is a corner, so there's no way to get the crowd to go into a safe area.
Yeah.
There's no bringing bleachers, and this is just the challenge of being in Baja. When we tried, we put tires up, we put cones up, we had guys yelling at people with bullhorns, "Hey, get out of the way! You're on the outside of a turn." Yeah, good luck. You
Yeah.
just can't control it. So that had to go away. And that was just the pinnacle. Like Magoo, my business partner who started this with me, had designed a start that was up on a hill just above it, like maybe a 10 or 12 foot drop. And you'd take off on a hill and then have an immediate hard left down like a sandy embankment. And then that turned left onto the course. So it was just a big
That's gnarly.
choke point. Like you'd get in second gear and then have to slam on the brake and then slide into the sand. And of course you stall your bike. You know what I mean? Like you're doing that on a chopper with a foot clutch, and it just, it was so fun. It was so fun. But then just so many people, and like the cops would park on the hill up above us with machine guns on the back of their trucks, and the marinas would come and they'd sit up there and just watch. They were just entertained watching these fools run around in circles and try to kill each other. But we just outgrew it. There's no way we could do it with that size crowd, and they wouldn't let us. The only kind of arena situation they have is a baseball field, but they finally got real grass in there, and they're super proud of it because it's beautiful grass, and that's really rare in San
Really
Felipe.
rare. Yeah. Yeah.
So we just outgrew it.
I mean, it makes everything makes super logical sense, and maybe just tie it back to the beginning. Like at the same time that EDR is growing, Biltwell certainly is growing as well and doing other shows. How do you, as an online merchant, a helmet company, parts, everything, how do you kind of balance the work of doing these large shows? Because you're still doing Kernville and now you're launching Northwest Motofest.
Yep.
What does that look like as far as company focus, and how do you kind of divide your kind of time and focus into those areas?
That's a really good question, Tim. I wish I had a clear answer for you. The best answer is I delegate. Like I'm not the one doing all this stuff. Otto does almost all, or I would say he does all the event organizing. He does the MC work or most of it. Sometimes we'll get some help. He's the one chasing permits and insurance and talking every day. And I have overview on it and help start the stuff. And I still do the artwork or coordinate the artwork with different artists for all the events and help make the decisions. And then Josh is our operations manager. He was on, I think 2008 EDR was where we met. He was in the Booze Fighters, and he had been deployed. He was in the Marine Corps, did 20 years as a Huey door gunner, or it's really called a crew chief. Yeah. And when he retired, I think 6 years ago now, he had been telling me for 10 years, like, I'm working for Biltwell when I get out. And I'm like, dude, I don't have a job for any Huey door gunners. I mean, we don't even have a helicopter. I don't know what I'm going to do for you. And man, about the time he was starting to retire, I was like, you know what? We just need somebody that knows where all the keys are. Like we need somebody that knows what all the passwords are. We need somebody that's responsible for all the OSHA docs, somebody that, just all the operation stuff that isn't sexy and I'm definitely not good at. So Josh came on, and then he kind of found his niche with events in taking the load off of Otto so that he could handle like merch, and so we started getting better at merch, doing a little bit more, giving me more time to source the artwork with various artists or do some of the stuff myself. And that freed up Otto to have more time to dedicate to the actual operations of the events. And so, man, we just spread it around. And then like in Mexico, our guy Christian, who's our assistant warehouse manager, speaks Spanish. He's got family down there. So this time we printed the shirts in Mexico so we didn't have to import them and pay tariffs on that, because they're sticklers. If they find a van full of T-shirts, you got big taxes. And so we just we leverage our team. Everything is, the old adage, teamwork makes the dream work, is 100% true. And that's how we do it. And then, we're strategic about it too. We'll sit down and have conversations like, okay, now that we're not doing EDR, that frees up the spring. Like we kind of want to do it quarterly. Like we got parts and labor in January. Then we have Biltwell 100 is usually in April. Yeah. Then Born Free and People's Champ is late June. And then now Pacific the Great Northwest Motofest in August. And then October is going to be Kernville still. And then I think late October, which is really too close to Kernville, but it's the only way the weather is going to let us do it. We're trying to do a Biltwell 150 in Yerington, Nevada. So another off-road race, another desert race. But 50% further than the
Yeah.
100, and a little bit more accessible to people in the northern area,
Yeah. Yeah.
so Nevada, Arizona, Washington, Oregon, Idaho, all that stuff. So yeah, like I said, we try to be strategic and not put things too close together.
Yeah.
And we kind of quit going to a lot of other people's events. Not we haven't quit, but we just got really particular about it, and we
Yeah.
don't waste time. Um, driving cross country to go to something with 40 people or whatever. And that was never a waste of time. That was how we built this brand, and that's still really important. But now we'll be a little more strategic and like fly in Otto and our media team, Flynn and Jeff or something, and he'll go, or I'll go to this one, or Josh will go to that one, and we're not bringing a whole crew and a bunch of bikes, and
Yeah.
so
Totally different vibe.
yeah,
I mean, I bet people like echo up to you somehow in media sphere, whether it's social media, that there's like this perception that Biltwell is this big company, but you're a relatively small unit of people doing a lot of work.
that's absolutely true. I mean, people usually think we're smaller than we are or bigger than we are, you know, and I don't know. I don't know what to do about that. We don't. It's not really a concern of mine. I don't really care what people think. But right now, I think we're 15 people. 15, I believe, is where we're at, and we've been bigger. We've been up to, I want to say 23 or 24,
Mm.
but we've had some lean years post COVID, and have also got more efficient. And it's kind of been max effort for the last couple of years on everybody's part. It's
Yeah.
like we had some really easy years there for a little while, and we're starting to kind of come out of what I would call the definitely harder years. You know,
Yeah. I mean, I think that's common within the motorcycle industry. As a magazine publisher, we see it certainly through our ads, right?
sure,
We
sure,
see where companies are really like, oh, sure, we'll do this amount for this much time and it's easy. And then you get to certain uncertainties,
yep,
certain levels of like areas where there's, high inflation, you start seeing that shift.
yeah, absolutely,
Certainly last year it felt pretty lean for
yeah.
a lot of people.
And same here. Last year was not a good year for us, and it all trickles down from distributors to dealers, all that stuff. We're omni-channel, so we sell every single way you could possibly sell, and our online consumer business is really good, but dealers have been suffering. Dealers
Yeah.
really got caught in the crunch where, when COVID hit, power sports went bananas. Everybody bought everything they could. Well, then all of a sudden there was a supply chain crunch. So then everybody sold everything that was gathering cobwebs in the corners of their shop. That stuff came out, got dusted off, and got sold. And they thought, God, this is never going to end. So then when the supply chain opened up again, they bought way more stuff than they needed. And that was
Yeah.
about time some of the supplemental income and that sort of stuff started going away, and reality started coming back into the picture, and people realized they weren't really going to ride around the world, and consumers stopped buying. You know what I mean? It's like the bills
Yeah,
came
no,
due a
no, no.
little
I
bit.
yeah, I totally understand. Yeah, I
Yeah,
get it
and I
100%.
I look at I'll listen to some NPR podcast on economics. Marketplace is something I've been listening to for 30 years. I love Kai Ryssdal and that whole deal, and listening to that stuff, and I'm like, if you only knew, like I knew this, what you're talking about now, I knew 3 months ago, because Biltwell is just like a little barometer for what's happening in American businesses.
Yeah, yeah, certainly. How when you and Magoo started Biltwell, was it just basically you two, or how did it kind of start? And then where was your like big grow points early on?
So it was originally me, Magoo, and our friend Chris, and our friend Sherry in Taiwan, who was a bicycle business person. She had owned a factory, and then she sold the factory, made a bunch of money, and she's like total badass, like self-made. Started out working in that bike factory, and then I don't know how long it was, 18 years, 15 years or something. Later, she bought that factory, and especially for a woman in
Yeah,
that era, that was a really rare, she was in really rare air. So not your average person. We had been doing a BMX brand called Snafu back then, which was fun. And Magoo and I both were kind of getting tired of being told what to do by 13-year-old boys. It's just like,
Yeah, yeah.
man, you guys are idiots, and there's a new group of idiots every 2 years, and it's fun, but whatever. We kind of felt like we wanted to grow out of it. And so I had an old Honda CB and then had a Sportster, and I don't know. We just talked about, like, at the time we had an advertising agency, or it was more of what I'd call a design agency. So we did stuff in action sports, snow, skate, BMX, mountain bike, motocross. Did a bunch of trans world titles. So we used to do magazine design. He was a magazine editor, BMX Plus back in the '80s. I was
Oh
a
my God.
magazine art.
That's like peak BMX Plus too.
Yeah, totally, totally.
Yeah.
I mean, we can go into a whole. I don't have enough battery on my phone to go into Magoo's history as far as BMX goes, but anyway,
That was the only magazine in my life I ever shoplifted in the 1980s was BMX Plus.
Nice.
Statute of Limitations is over.
You didn't steal porn. You had to steal a 20-inch bicycle magazine.
Well, porn was more difficult. It was behind the counter.
Well, that's true. That's harder to steal.
Was like right there.
That's good. So, I was previously in the Marine Corps, then had a big gap in time, and then after 9/11, I was, I'd been through college, I had kids, they were little kids at the time. 9/11 happened, and I was like, man, I just felt compelled, like I needed to do something to help my country, and I was too fat to get back in the Marine Corps. And but Army National Guard happened to have a tank company in my town, and I was in tanks in the Marines. So I went and visited them, and they're like, yeah, come on in, this will be great, blah blah blah. And I'm like, okay. So my wife agreed to it, whatever. And then it was maybe 6 months later, we got deployment orders, and we were going to Iraq, and they said, and we don't need tanks, by the way, so you're going to be infantry, so you're going over there and going to be gone. So that cost me 18 months of my life, 6 months training.
Were you in a striker brigade at least, or
no? It was Humvees and on foot. Yeah, it was awesome. I liked the work. I don't like being gone from my kids at that time.
Yeah,
but that sort of work is appealing to me. And after being self-employed for 10 years before that, it was really easy work. In some ways physically demanding, but I was 36, I think, at the time, so I was kind of an old man.
Yeah.
But I could outrun half those fuckers. Like I wasn't, I was still in pretty good shape. I joked I was too fat to get in the Marine Corps, but I dropped like 40, 45 pounds, I think, before we deployed. So anyways, every once in a while I'd get email, and me and Magoo would go back and forth about business plans. And I was like, man, I want to do a snafu, but for choppers, or for custom motorcycles. And at first he's like, I don't get it, man. Harleys are dumb, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, I know, I thought the same thing, but there's a cool way you can do it too. And you just got to kind of figure out the nuance, because we always associated Harleys. We had much more bicycle and dirt bike backgrounds, right? So we thought Harleys was just like chaps and fringe and people that are thinking they're tough guy. I used to always joke like, hey, you bought a bike, not a black belt. It doesn't really make you tough. And so anyways, I come home on leave in about 6 months into the deployment, and he had won $9,000 on a football bet. I think he put in $300 and hit a trifecta or something. Won $9,000. So he bought a Fly Right Choppers kit, and he was like, "You're right. We're gonna do this. I've been reading the horse magazine. That stuff is cool." And I'm like, "Okay." So we started building that bike. I came back 6 months later and went over to his house, after reuniting with my family for a couple of days, and we finished off that bike. And he had a chopper, and it was a big twin Evo, flat black, custom painted tank by Andy Jenkins, skateboard guy, friend of ours. Super neat bike, and especially for his first bike. And during that time, we had been talking about starting something, so we came up with the name Biltwell, and our friend Chris was going to be the guy to kind of run it, because we knew we wouldn't have any income coming from it. So we're still doing, Trans World Motocross and working for Mongoose Bikes and blah, 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 and doing different things to bring money into the agency. And we would just have one guy that was kind of the brand ambassador that would just have to do everything, So Chris was designing things. He was going to events. He was kind of the guy. That lasted that way, I want to say 2 years. I could be off on my dates. And then we kind of had a falling out. He split, and we hired another guy, Mike Ellis, who had worked for us at another brand we did called Universal that was motocross stuff. It was a little bit more freestyle oriented, and we'd already sold that brand off. And Mike came on. We went to New York to the Gypsy Run. So I think this was 2009. And I knew Mike rode motocross and stuff. So for some reason, I just kind of assumed that he had ridden on the street. And so we towed bikes out there with my old van and a trailer. And then we ripped through Manhattan, all through, Brooklyn, all over the place. You know how chaotic that kind of big city stuff is.
Yeah,
and he
no,
was on a modern Triumph that I had bought in '06. And at the end of the day, he goes, "Man, that was wild. I've never ridden a bike on the street before." And I was like, "Oh, you're kidding."
That is trial by fire, because riding in New York is.
Yeah, I'm like, this
I
is
mean,
the
I
hardest.
used to live in New York. Riding in New York's fucking nuts. The potholes alone are death traps.
And the people are not stoked, and there's no such thing as a smooth line. Like it just everything about it is pure chaos, which I actually enjoy. Not if I had to commute it in every day, I would hate it. But as as just
you get
visiting
used to
once
the
a year,
chaotic nature of it, though.
Yeah,
like
and so
you know the rules of their road.
Yes, and so Mike passed the test. He I was like, dude, I'm sorry. I wouldn't have put you in that situation if I didn't think. I thought you had the skills, or I thought you had the experience. He obviously had the skills. He had just never used them. And then he was kind of hooked, and he became our GM up until a couple of years ago. And you asked what our growth moment was. I think that was right at the same time, actually, that Mike came on, because at the time we were built with this distributor model in mind. Like, we have to sell to a big distributor because big distributors sell to all the shops. And we knew that was the way that it worked. But man, we couldn't get anybody to take us serious. Distributors didn't want to talk to us. Shops didn't want to talk to us. But in the meantime, we were meeting people at events. We were doing the EDR. We were on forums, which were a big thing back then. Jockey Journal. We started Chop Cult in 2009, I think. And the only way to get around, like, people would be literally banging on our door saying, "Man, I want to buy a novelty helmet, or I want to buy some handlebars," or whatever. I'm like, "Oh, you got to find a shop." I was like, "Man, Magoo, we're just throwing money away. We're just turning customers away because this imaginary distributor hasn't come along." And so our workaround was, my wife and I started a store we called Unit One, which was named after Johnny Cash's tour bus. And she would print the orders out every night, and then I would go to work in the morning, and I would pack the orders and take them to UPS on the way home, kind of thing. Or she's got pictures of her, with a dolly and our kids carrying boxes going into the post office to drop off Biltwell packages for the day. So we did that for about a year, and then we just said, "Man, this is stupid. We're just gonna start our own online store." I mean, we're just turning down so much, and we're bumming our customers out. We can't get the stuff to the customers if we don't do this. And at the time, nobody had an online store. Like, this might be hard to believe in 2026 for a younger listener, but this wasn't the way, and it was really looked down upon. And we were like, screw it, we're going to do it. And so that was when we really hit the gas. That's when we started getting cash flow on a daily basis, because orders just started trickling in. And we're like, wow, okay. And so we had to move out of that building into a bigger one where we had more room to buy more inventory, build a little shop, do a bunch of upgrades, add some more people, and it just kind of snowballed from there. And then I think 2013-ish, Drag Specialties came around, Le Mans Corp, and said, "Hey, you guys interested in a distributor?" And we're like, "Where have you been?" They're like, "Well, but do you understand distributor margin?" And we're like, "Yeah, we've had it built in since day one, but we couldn't get anybody to return a call." And they're like, "Well, we're here now." We're like, "Okay." So then we started that, and they were okay with us staying multi-channel, which is good, because during COVID, when everything dried up, the consumer direct part of the business skyrocketed. So I was really glad that we kind of stuck to our guns and stayed omni-channel, where we sell every which way we can. So we'll sell direct to a dealer if they want. We'll sell direct to a consumer if they want. And we sell to domestic and international distributors.
What's the kind of core, like, brand philosophy now? Because you've diversified both the bikes and the parts. You carry other people's stuff on a limited basis now. It seems like that kind of growth and those kind of changes, you have to kind of create a philosophy for where it all kind of makes sense to you.
That's the thing, Tim. That philosophy is like, does this make sense to us? Because if it doesn't, we're not going to do it. We're not going to do it because we think there's an imaginary customer that it makes sense to.
Mm.
We're going to do it because it makes sense to us. So I think you'll see over the next few years, we're going to stick with some core hard parts that we have, but most things are going helmet and gear company, just because at some point you can't be all things to all people, and you can't build a moat around cut and welded and bent handlebars, because that's a really easy thing for people to make. So
Yeah.
those can change on a whim, and be kind of a fashion thing. Helmets, you can kind of build a little bit of a moat around, because it's hard for like a small guy to come up and take that business. I'm not saying it's not possible; it totally is. And the big guys don't really care that much about it to come in and try to crush us. I mean, they've all copied us at this point,
Yeah.
which is funny because we started by copying what they were doing 40 years ago. But
Yeah. Yeah.
um,
Yeah. They're kind of heritage designs to them now.
exactly. So they've dipped their toe in it, but they figured out how small this market really is, and they're like, "No, we just need to sell, flat black whatever helmets to the average rider." I think, but I think you'll see some diversity in our helmets too. I mean, we're working on a dirt bike helmet, like a real,
Yeah.
uh, I, I'd say contemporary, like as far as materials and weight and stuff goes, but it doesn't have, in typical Biltwell style, it doesn't have all the fins and fillets and,
Yeah. Yeah. The air vents and
vestigial
everything.
designs that don't really do anything. It's very plain. That's kind of our design language, is like plain and functional, a little bit vintage.
Like mid-80s style.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. Um, I just rode the EDR and then rode home to Washington in a prototype of a flip up, a modular helmet called the XLR, for people that want that functionality. And I always thought they were kind of goofy. Like, I don't need to smoke cigarettes when I roll through town with the thing flipped up and whatever. But man, eating red vines at 80 miles an hour is pretty convenient, and being able to get that thing on and off easy. And I was like, okay, I finally get it.
But you even like keep evolving your kind of core models too. The Gringo has
Absolutely.
evolved. Like
Yeah.
was that circular and then shifted to oval at one point? Like
It, so it was more round, and has shifted to more of a oval shape over the years. And it's in its, man, like technical generations, that's probably the fifth version of that helmet
oh
by
wow.
now. I mean, not that we've marketed five, but
Yeah.
we've continued to fine tune, because we had DOT only. Then we brought out DOT and ECE, which ECE is a much tougher rating to get. Then we brought out a third shell size. All this stuff takes so much time and effort and money to do. Like, to tool up for another shell size is six figures,
Yeah.
and you'll have people complaining, "Oh, you don't make a 4X." It's like, man, am I going to spend $100,000 to go 4 and 5X and sell 20 a
It's
year?
like it's like the kid asking for that is that kid who played football and he had to have the helmet that looks different than everyone else's, like the different color and everything because they couldn't get one to
Right.
match. Like you're gonna spend $100,000 for one helmet cell.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, at some point, I think we'll be mostly helmet and gear. Manufacturer making the bags has been really fun. That fits with our core philosophy of, I mean, our slogan has been for, God, I don't know, 15 years, ride motorcycles, have fun, because that's what we want to do. And we're non-denominational, which, doesn't fit a lot of hardcore. I might like older bikes. Otto's riding an Africa Twin now. David tried the chopper thing, just couldn't do it. He's another like kind of Africa Twin or Triumph Tiger guy.
Mm.
Um, Josh has a Panhead and a BMW and an Evo chop. So, we kind of just, we got a motorcycle problem, and it's not real specific.
Yeah, yeah.
Choppers are just part of it.
Do you think that people originally identified you as a chopper brand and then your events like starting up with desert racing and stuff kind of broadened that, or do you think that the kind of gear changes drove the changes in the events, or perception's such a weird thing out there? How do you?
Yeah, I don't know. And I don't really put much effort or thought into that. Like, we like I said, we just are who we are. So we'll,
Yeah.
if we see a need, something that interests us, we think, well, this is probably going to interest a certain amount of our customers. When we did the 100, it was really simple. I called XRs only to buy some parts for an XR 400, and the guy saw my email address, and it was ended with Biltwell, and he was like, "Man, hey, you work at Biltwell?" And I go, "Yeah." And he's like, "I got to tell you, I run Chase for the LA to Barstow to Vegas race,
No,
and your
that
guys."
race is brutal.
Totally. He's like, "And your
Brutal.
guys," and I'm like, "My guys, we've never raced it." And he goes, "No, your customers." And I'm like, "God, I'm kind of going to get an ass chewing from this dude. I can tell where this is going." And he goes, "Your guys are always in the back with all these parts falling off their old Triumphs, and they got all this goofy gear on and wearing your helmets and gloves and all this stuff." And I'm like, "Yeah." And he goes, "Man, they're the best. They have the best attitude." He's like, "I'm in this old club called the 100s, and that's what we used to be like. And they just bring joy to me every time." He's like, "I can't wait to hang out with all the, like, call them the Biltwell kids at the LA to Barstow to Vegas race, you know?" And I was like,
Yeah.
wow, I'm kind of like a proud dad moment, getting told how great my kid is or something. And he said, "By the way, have you ever thought about doing a desert race?" And I said, "I'd love to do a desert race, but I have no idea where to start. I don't know how to ask the BLM if we can borrow a couple thousand acres or any of that." And he said,
Yeah.
"Well, I do it for side by sides. We have an organization that does it. We have like our own stage and sound system and timing. And my club, the 100s, runs Chase for us to go pick people up when they crash their bike and stuff. You want to have tacos?" And I was like, "Yep." And me and Otto met him the next day,
That's
drove
awesome.
2 hours out there and had tacos and beers. And
I mean, for
that
the
wasn't
people
like
who
some
are
big
listening,
strategy meeting. It was me and Otto driving in a van going, "I don't know. You want to do a desert race?" "Yeah, I don't know. It sounds fun. Let's do a desert race."
for the people who are listening who are unfamiliar with like desert race community or desert races, like um this is not an atypical kind of story. Like desert racers are fanatic about it. They want to get anyone involved they can because at least in my experience, my uncle Charlie Morris was SoCal MC desert racer. He's buried at Husky Memorial.
Okay,
Uh,
wow.
and so I grew up in desert. I grew up in Palmdale. I grew up like desert racing is like my family's trade. Tuna was a desert racer. My cousin was a desert racer and then motocross
Okay.
racer. And if someone even gets a sniff of interest in off-roading, they're like, "Oh, you should we have a hill climb, we have all these
Yeah.
events." Like they just try and bring people in such an inviting way. But I think people who are not used to it and they see it on videos or they read about it, it just seems so kind of entrenched into its own world, which it is to a certain degree, but like
Hmm.
it's an inviting world. And people like should entertain it. And I think where I'm going with this is like, Biltwell 100 has a amateur class. Most races have an amateur class, but you have several classes of amateurs. What does the kind of makeup now, moving from them helping you and doing Biltwell 100, what does the makeup of that race kind of look like? How many people do you think is that their first time experiencing desert racing and kind of coming new into that community?
It's a lot. It's a lot of first time racers. We do what I would call the slower or more oddball classes on Saturday. We split it
Mm.
into 2 days now, and then we do modern classes, meaning modern bikes of that are just split up by age and gender on Sunday. And what really shocked us, I thought all the serious guys would be like, "Man, this is a joke. This isn't hard enough." Like, because we designed the course to be something that pretty much everybody can finish.
Yeah.
It's challenging, especially if you're a beginner. But like you said, these guys that race desert all the time, man, they're good. They are rock eaters. Those dudes can go out there. They'll do the things we're scared to go down in the daytime. They'll go up at night.
Yeah.
So I thought that it was going to be nothing but beginners. But what we found out was, compared to some of the more competitive hardcore district races and that stuff, this is just more fun. I mean, we have fire pits and beer, and like what some of the guys doing the scoring told us the first year was like, "Man, we can't believe how good looking the girls are at this race." And I'm like, "I know, I went to desert races for cars for years, and once the wife's done it 3 times, she's like, 'Man, I don't feel like going and
Never
getting
again. Yeah. Yeah.
sandblasted.'"
Yeah.
Yeah, they're going to stay in the trailer because it's no fun. But at ours, man, there's a ton of chicks that race, and then a ton of chicks that just come because it's fun, and they're either supporting their friends or their boyfriend or whatever. Um, but we tried to make it very open to amateurs, and in the process it made it more fun for the hardcore guys, because what they tell us is, man, there's just no real pressure and nobody's a dick when you get up on the line. And there's been a few people that badmouth us, but they're jocks and I don't care about those kind of people anyway. There's a bunch of races and organizations and things dedicated to that lifestyle
Oh yeah, yeah,
already,
100%.
and so they have a place where they're comfortable. And like I said earlier, we don't have to be everything to everybody. We're just trying to be the right, sort of formula for the people that think a little bit like us. Like, hey, how do I do this? I don't know. And we'll explain it and get down into the weeds and the details, and we'll do podcasts about it and videos about it and show what the
Yeah.
entire course looks like, and all that stuff. So I don't know. Hope that answers your question.
No, I think it does. I mean, it's just it's a peculiar, like most of my listeners are chopper people. I mean, the podcast is called Do You Even Chopper?
Right.
Um so it's one of those things where it's like, if you haven't experienced it or like dealt with the community, I know people feel like it's a different world and I can't even talk to them because they're so shut off. And it's like, I've in my experience, which would be, I'm in my late 40s, and it's been my whole life around desert racers, is I feel complete opposite as far as how inviting people are in it,
Right.
you know. But and how stoked they are for having fun. I mean, I remember desert races in the 80s, they were all partying
Oh
before and
man, that was
after, and
where
they're
that's how I came up in it. I worked in a Volkswagen shop in Gardena in high school, and next to us was a couple of phone guys that all they did was coke and build a race car all the time. And man, once me and my buddies got licenses, all of a sudden we had value because we could drive chase trucks while those guys were pre-running Baja and Nevada and Arizona and
yeah.
all over California and everything else. And we just got sucked into the whole thing. And the first time I spent 2 weeks pre-running in Baja with these guys, I was like, this is all I want to do. All I want to do is bring surfboards on this so that when they're sleeping off hangovers, I can go try to catch some waves. And otherwise, this is what I want to do the rest of my life. And
Yeah.
that was kind of the inspiration for the vibe on the 100, and also a little bit of the inspiration for EDR.
Yeah.
I found San Felipe as a kid. Back then San Felipe 250 coincided with spring break. So when we would go down there, and spring break was actually a big deal in San Felipe back then. A
Yeah,
lot of
yeah. Oh
San
yeah.
Diego kids would come there, and man, partying down there at 16, and the boss is 38 and tired and goes to sleep, and you just hang out in San Felipe late at night. It's kind of as good as it gets. So that was the vibe we wanted EDR to be, was kind of like a pre-run trip or like a surf trip.
Yeah. So, I mean, we talked about two of your big shows, and we'll get to Northwest Motofest, but I'm kind of interested in the evolution of Kernville, because that seems like one that like kind of started kind of grassroots and then like seems like it sells out almost immediately these days.
It sells
Like
out,
how?
but it's not immediate. The 100 is the one that sells out immediately, which is
Oh,
still shocking to me. Kernville takes, we'll launch tickets, I don't know, end of July, I think, and it'll take a month or something for it to sell out. Because I think we do 1,000 people, cap it at 1,000, and we could actually fit a few more, but I don't know. I'd rather people got enough room to set up their tents and operate a little bit without making it super festival like. It's no fun to
yeah,
put your tent just nuts to butts with everybody. So yeah, we cap it. And Kernville, all events start small. I mean, I think you're going to see, if you hopefully you make it up for the Motofest. That's going to be small. Nobody comes on the first year. It's the second and third year where you start to get the people that were tertiary friends of people that came,
yeah,
and they were like, I'm going to make it. And then the baby gets sick the night before and they don't, and whatever. And then they see all the fun that their friends had. And so they start coming year 2 and year 3, and it kind of evolves from there. So yeah, Kernville definitely evolved over time, but if anything, it's just gotten more polished. We have less problems, and I think we've found the things that the customers enjoy. Like we do yard games now. We do a SpaghettiOs eating contest. That's like kind of a memorial for a friend of ours that died on his bike, and he used to eat cold SpaghettiOs when we would go camping, and so it's just a way for us
That
to
was one of
remember.
my tour. That was like my tour meal.
Yeah,
Was cold
exactly. I mean,
SpaghettiOs because it's
that's like the
fine in the
cold.
can cold. It's good.
Exactly, it's like the cold ramen, right? It's super cheap. It
Yeah.
packs easy. Um, so yeah, there's a bunch of goofy stuff like that, and then we always have good music. And what's neat about Kernville is you can just walk to town. So we shut everything down usually by 10, just so that the anybody that wants to actually go to sleep at a decent time can do so. And then you just walk across the street and you're in town, and there's bars and places you can hang out if you want to, stay out later and drink, or just stay in your campsite or whatever.
Yeah. So those three shows give you a lot of skills to kind of launch a new show, which is Northwest Motofest. Let's maybe start talking about that. Maybe give some details to the listeners of like when it is, where it is, and
Okay.
kind of what to expect.
Yep. So it's going to be August 7th and 8th. It's at the Extreme Sports Park, which is, I think, 2 or 3 miles west of Port Angeles. I've lived here in PA for about 3 years, a little over 3 years now. And the guys that own the sports park are my neighbors. They live on my street, and they built it so that the main guy, Dan, could race sprint boats. So it has a sprint boat
Oh,
track
okay.
built into it. If you've ever seen those little things, they're
Yeah,
like,
shallow water boats.
yeah, 6 feet long with 1 million horsepower, and they just rip.
Yeah.
Um, he got in trouble for building a track in his yard, and the city didn't like it, and his neighbors complained and whatnot. So he bought like 100 acres and made his own track and all this stuff. So they also have like an off-road park for a little bit of monster truck stuff, and then they also do like serious rock crawler kind of competitions out there. And I went and met him and his wife Kelly, and said, "What do you think about doing a motorcycle event here?" I'd been there for like a beer fest and a couple other things, and was like, "Man, this is a pretty spot, and it's far enough out of town that the noise won't really bother anybody. It's kind of right by the airport, so you're used to noise there anyway.
Yeah.
Um, and it's got green grass, although it'll be brown in August. Big trees. It's easy access to town. Almost walking distance to a little native casino and gas station, coffee shop, that kind of stuff."
Oh,
And
I know exactly which one you're talking about.
okay.
Yeah.
So they were just really inviting Dan and Kelly, were like, "Yeah, we can do it." And I said, "What about, I see you got a bunch of heavy equipment. Think we could cut a little track and do like a little TT course?" And he's like, "Dude, I'll do whatever you want. You just come out the week before and we'll figure it out." And I was like, "Okay, I'm gonna draw it up. We're gonna have a bump and 5 turns, and it'll be sort of fun. And we're gonna do like a not serious class and a kind of serious class. Like, so if you really want to go fast, if you're on a modern Triumph or something, and you want to see if you can back it in and all that, you need to not be in the same class as the guy on a 12 over shovelhead rigid. Let's give him
Yeah.
a little room, and maybe we'll run those guys backwards for open primaries. So I think we can bring back a little bit of the circle of death thing without the death part. Like, I think
Yeah.
we can do, this place has enough room. We can have control enough to uh, get people in the safe spots, like along the straight parts and up on some echo blocks where you can look down at the racing area. And I'm sure we'll learn a ton, but yeah, that's the plan. So a little bit of racing, a little bit of yard games, a whole lot of camping. It's only $100. That covers 2 nights of
Yeah,
camping.
two nights of camping. And
Yeah.
just so people know, like camping, you're near the Olympic National Forest, so camping for 2 nights in Olympic National Forest is going to cost you more than that.
Dude, the hotels in town in August, some like pretty mediocre ones, are $400 or $500 a night.
Yeah.
Like,
So like your
it's
lodging
crazy.
alone,
Yeah.
camping, your camping fee alone is lower than you could camp in the forest right around it.
Yeah. And Kelly, that runs it out there, said if anybody wants to come early or stay late, she'll rent them a spot for $35, $35 a head. So if you want, it takes so long to get to the peninsula, especially if you're coming from, God knows where. And being here for 2 days isn't enough to even scratch the surface. So if anybody's got the time to stick around, you can go out to the Hoh Rainforest. We've got a
Yeah.
ton of beaches. Like, there's just no way without spending months here to really explore it all. But you
Yeah,
could
yeah.
cherry
Lake
pick a
Crescent's a
few.
great ride.
Oh, Crescent, and from where we're at, going out the 112, go by Salt Creek, go by Crescent Beach, and then take the cut over through Joyce and end up
Oh
over
yeah.
at Crescent. I mean, it looks like where they film Lexus commercials or whatever. Just
Oh yeah, yeah.
perfectly
Yeah.
striped S turns, really sharp, gorgeous trees, and then man, go to Lake Crescent Lodge, have an old fashioned on the porch in a 100-year-old building, and just celebrate how good life is at the moment. I mean, it's
Yeah.
like it really is a great
You
place.
could hook up Nia Bay, come back down,
Yep,
go through Ozette. I mean,
yep,
there's a lot of opportunity there, you
there
know.
is. I mean, I kind of depending on how things are going, if it's going smooth and we got the time on Sunday, I want to try to get a crew of guys to ride up to the top of Hurricane Ridge and then do a coasting race,
Oh shit.
unofficial, of course.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
let's see who can go the farthest. See who's
A
got the
coasting
best.
test.
Yeah, a test, not a race. Yes, it's a coasting demonstration. But I would like to
Yeah.
just shut off all bikes and then see who's got the best wheel bearings and aerodynamics.
Whew. I mean, that's make sure you have good braking skills
Yeah,
on that
yeah.
one. But
Well, I'll be on my shovel, which only has a rear brake, so
yeah. And then
I'll,
people could go to Victoria quite easily. It's one ferry away.
yep. And I'm hoping we got some friends in Victoria, so I think we're going to see people coming that way, from Canada, coming over here. Um, so yeah, and then our friend Chris Huber's in a great band. We just saw him in Seattle a couple of weeks ago called Crime Wave 66, and man, they rip. To me, I mean, I'm not a music critic, so maybe he'll cringe, but it kind of reminds me of like if the Vandals and Social D had a baby, so it's kind of easy sing along kind of punk. It's not like
Yeah.
super hardcore thrashy kind of punk. It's more just fun punk.
Yeah.
And they're great. I mean, they are tight for a new band. We saw them at the Carazone in did I say that right? In
Corazon. El
Seattle.
Corazon
Yeah,
in Seattle.
Corazon.
Yeah.
And man, they ripped. They ripped. So them coming all the way from Tucson is just massive for us that they would do that for us.
And features Matt Freeman also on bass, right?
Yes.
From
Yep.
Rancid. So
Yep. Yep.
people will dig that.
Yeah.
Should people expect more bands to be announced or more music or?
I don't want to announce anything because I don't know 100%. There is a local band that we're talking with, and I'd love to get more local involvement.
Yeah.
So I don't have anybody to announce, but we're trying to get a second band as well. But
Right
even if
on.
it just ends up being Crime Wave, I think that'll be enough. And those guys will do a pretty long, ripping set. Friday night, we usually do just MC music, and
Yeah.
it still keeps the vibe good and all that. But a lot of times Friday is when everybody's kind of loading in. So you got people coming in all different times. And so there's not a lot of super organized stuff going on Friday night.
Yeah.
We'll have a bar set up. I'm not going to get into that just because of legal stuff. It is private
Yeah.
property, and we do have a nonprofit that's going to run that for us.
Yeah. Yeah.
We
Yeah.
may have
I
to.
know how that works in this state very
Okay,
well.
the
Yeah.
state is pretty Nazi-like about that. It's funny because you can smoke fetty on the street if you want, but don't serve beer unless you put people in a cage in an outdoor venue. Kind of
Yeah.
ironic. So we're going to navigate that the best we can. But believe me, no one will go thirsty.
And food vendors, other kind of vendors, or
There'll be a couple of other vendors, and there will be at least one food vendor.
Hmm.
So it's not going to be a massive festival. I don't think we're going to have a shit ton of people the first year. And what everybody always tells me is the first year is always the best year. So when you come, if you come and there's only 75 people, then you get to know all of them. So that's kind of more fun. So
I think you'll be surprised by how the Northwest turns out.
I hope so. I hope so. Because man, all the riders I've met up here have been bitching, and you got to really want it. We always say that about choppers. Like, if you think it's going to be easy, it ain't. You could throw any amount of money at it you want. Any of that, it doesn't matter. Like these things will humble you, no matter how much experience you got, no matter what. You just always got to pay for it, and that's part of what makes it fun. And being somewhere that rains a lot makes it even more challenging.
Well, and then you have so much competition for time in the summer.
Right.
I think that's the most difficult thing for motorcycle events in the Northwest. I mean, we do a few and we sponsor a few and we're involved in a few, and it's the kind of trying to thread the needle of dates to where they all kind of work to the biggest of their utility that they can.
Right. And I mean, Washington, man, as soon as April or May comes around, there's a festival of one kind or another every single weekend until October. It feels like,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah, it's kind of like for people who are listening, Washington, it's rainy most of the year, so they really hold those weekend dates for festivals a lot of places. I feel like Milwaukee's like that too, as far as motorcycle people in the summer. Milwaukee is like there's some kind of weird festival every day that it's sunny out in the summer.
Yeah, some kind of cheese and beer festival.
Yeah.
And we have to go to Madison quite a bit for meeting with drag specialties and stuff. And that area is so beautiful. And you catch it on a summer day, and we would joke that somebody's like riding a bicycle with a kayak on their head and a pickleball paddle hanging out of their pocket. It's like they're going to cram everything summer related into a
Yeah.
single day. Like you don't want to waste any sunshiny days, and that's definitely the vibe in Washington. At least it stays light late. So
Yeah, yeah, because it's like right now it's like sunsets at 9:30.
yeah, I love it.
So for
I'll
people,
mow the yard at 9 o'clock at night.
yeah.
It's like, all right, I had my day. I was productive. Maybe even had some fun after dinner, and then still got time to mow the grass.
Yeah. I mean, it's a beautiful state. Um, God, after talking about that, like we've been chatting for an hour just as we are. I mean, I try and keep the podcast close, but I do want to kind of give one like more push for what Biltwell does for other shows and community. Like you said you're kind of backing out of like going to shows and stuff, but you guys kind of have supported or given advice to a lot of people over the years, which we certainly have appreciated. How do you see like your role as a community builder versus just the financial part of the company? Like they're kind of linked, but that work a lot of companies don't have to do.
Yeah, I mean, again, that's just been an organic process. It hasn't been something that we sat down and lined out a strategy and we're like, okay, here's the outline for how we're going
Yeah,
to be influencers or whatever. It's just turned into we've had some mild successes, and mostly we've just been too dumb to quit. So we just kind of we'll just do the work. We're just all of us are grinders, so we will just grind it out until it works, and we're not afraid to have what we call AAR, after action review for everything we do. And so
yeah,
after every event, we sit down, and they're painful sometimes because we're not trying to talk about all the good stuff. And we bring up the good, but we mostly just focus on the bad stuff and what we can fix and what we can update and what we can iterate on. And so over the years, I don't know, we've been asked by a lot of people what the magic formula is or the secret sauce or any of that. And I don't really know. I mean, I think you just give the people what they want. And, quite a long time ago, we found a lot of people just had their hand out and just wanted money, and then their events may or may not happen and that kind of stuff. We learned this a long, long time ago. So we said, hey, the thing that we can offer you is some support on social media, by telling people about your event. We can send you stuff that you can give away, because if I send you a bag that's got a $200 retail value to your customer, it really only costs me $50. So that gives me, a big savings, and I don't have
yeah,
to
yeah,
just
yeah,
cut a check and send it to you. And then that way it gets our gear to an actual rider that might benefit from it, not just giving a promoter money. And that's kind of just been the way we've done it for probably 15 years. Is, hey man, we don't spend cash on events unless we absolutely have to, or it's a friend that we've known for a long time, and we're just helping them subsidize it, maybe.
yeah.
Um, and so we mostly just give gear. And then if they want to talk to me or to Otto, we're pretty good at not trying to dad splain things to people or treat them like they're stupid. We'll take time to talk to anybody. And there really is no secret sauce. It's show up early, stay late, and work in between that.
Sorry, wife is texting me, so I might have to figure out how to cut that. But or we could just
I,
end on that note.
I'm probably I don't know what my battery's doing. I better check that.
No, you're there.
Okay. Yeah.
Uh, well, I mean, I certainly look forward to going to Northwest Motofest. The Northwest is one of those places famous for the Seattle freeze and how like initial like things kind of set up, but I've heard nothing but like good vibes coming out of people who are getting exciting for it already, and just
Cool.
have more kind of curiosity than anything.
Yeah. I mean, another thing that we've tried to do with these events is be ambassadors. And I don't mean that in a social media way. I mean, like, we wanted to be ambassadors for Baja, and bring
Yeah.
guys on people on bikes down to Baja and show them that stuff. And what happened was Baja got kind of exposed to chopper culture, which is neat because some of these, I mean, there's some kids in Mexicali that I know the only influence they've got on this had to come from us. Maybe they
Yeah.
watched some Jesse James stuff, but they ride down there on total shit boxes that just suck. But they're doing it. I mean, they're just so inspirational. I just love to see somebody doing that. And I think we want to be an ambassador for the Olympic Peninsula and show people what this area is about. I've been to Seattle and met people, and they're like, "Oh, I've heard of Port Angeles, never been there. It's really far, huh?" And I'm like, "It's about 2.5 hours. I don't know. I'd fly down to California 6 times a year."
Yeah.
Are you kidding me? I'm like, that's, for me, it was like driving from Temecula to LAX. It's the same.
Yeah. I mean, I think people get a skewed sense of time who haven't lived in somewhere like LA or Inland Empire or something that just takes forever to get everywhere. Like,
exactly.
People on I-5 corridor up here are super spoiled.
Right. Yeah, they talk about traffic, and now it's starting to get summer in Port Angeles, and my local buddies, that have been there 80 years old and live across the street are like, "Oh, the traffic is terrible." And I was like, "I know, there was 4 cars at the stop sign this morning."
Yeah.
It's like, you don't know anything, dude. Sometimes in California, I live 10 miles from home, and it would take me 45 minutes to get home in the afternoon. I hated it. So that vibe, Port Angeles is not Seattle. Like, it's got some of the
opposite.
Yeah, it's got some of the funkiness, but these are some of the nicest people I've ever met. Of course, you could find a jerk anywhere you go. There's more than 2 people. There could be somebody like that. But for the most part, they're way nicer than anywhere I've ever been. I can't go to the hardware store without running into somebody that wants to shoot the bull for 5 minutes or whatever, and if you see somebody and you make eye contact, you talk to them. It's kind of like a little bit of a time machine. You kind of go back in time a little bit because most of the people here aren't in that big of a hurry. If you live here, you can't really commute much. You might commute to Squim or maybe to Forks, but you're probably working in town or working remote or doing something that makes it so if you're not struggling financially, you're not driving super far or sitting in traffic all day for the most part. And I think that just brings the vibe down, and it's a little mellower.
Yeah. I mean, I hope that people explore the area more. I look forward to seeing you in a couple months up there, and I want to thank you for being on the podcast and tell people before you leave where they can find the tickets and get that kind of information directly.
Okay, so you can go to Biltwell, and then at the very top, or if it's on mobile, the little hamburger, the 3 lines, click that. You'll see events. Follow that to Northwest Motofest. And that's where tickets are actually on sale now. So they're available and will be available probably within a week or so of the event. I don't think we're going to sell any at the gate because we need to know, like, for vendors and insurance and other stuff, we need to know how many people are coming. So there's probably not going to be any of that. That may change depending on how things go. But yeah, it's smart to get your ticket in advance. And yeah, come on out. You got any questions, hit us up at events@Biltwell Inc. BILTWELLINC, like incorporated.com, and we'll get you set up. Yeah, hit us up in DMs on Instagram, Biltwell, at Biltwell, and hit us up. We answer every single email, we answer every single phone call, every single DM, all that stuff. Yeah, we do. I mean, I have an email I got to get to tonight where there was a guy, he was in Afghanistan 18 years ago, and I sent him a bunch of free stuff, and he's 18 years later, he's telling me that he remembers that and he's stoked, and just wanted to say thanks. So I'm like, yeah, every single person is important, and that's what we try to do.
You are listening to the Do You Even Chopper podcast, a product of The Ton Magazine. The Ton Magazine is published quarterly out of Washington State in the United States. You can find us online at thetonmag.com, on Instagram at thetonmag, same with Facebook, and on YouTube at The Ton Magazine.